Morning, everybody. It's Jim, and it is Amedeus. And today we got some college basketball to talk about, bracketology. And Amadeus, we're coming pretty darn close to those conference tournaments, and of course to March Madness.
Yeah, definitely. Most of these teams we're right in the end of the season. I've even seen, some of the smaller conferences, they only
Mm-hmm.
got 3 games or so left in the
Right.
season. So yeah, it's that time of year and it's right around the corner now.
Yep. And 68 teams will get to go to the dance, and there will be a few that won't. And as crazy as it sounds, there will always be. It used to be 30. It started off at 16. Okay. The tournament itself started off. And in the early days when UCLA won tournament, won the championships. And this is believe me, I loved John Wooden's UCLA teams that, had guys like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Silky Wilkes and all those fantastic players on them. They started with the Sweet 16. So basically that was it. They had to play their way through. That still means you have to win 4 games to win the championship, but still, it's different now when everything got pushed out to 32 and then it's now 68. But there's still going to be teams that are going to be left out, and the NIT, which is the tournament that is the secondary tournament, has become, it used to be that the NIT back in the day in the 50s and 60s used to be the tournament. As a matter of fact, there would be teams that qualified for the NCAA tournament that turns them down and would go play in the NIT tournament because it was more prestigious back in the day. But now we got 68 teams, and we'll find out who they're going to be. And I got the NCAA selection tournament committee, and here's the names and where the guys are from. So the selection committee, these are the guys who decide who's going to be in the tournament, okay? And the first person on the list is the chairperson. He's Charles McClendon. Now, Charles McClendon is the commissioner of the SWAC conference, which is a fantastic conference, predominantly with historically black colleges in it. And so Charles McClendon is the chairperson. That's a good thing because McClendon understands the plight of the mid-major and the smaller conference guys. Jamie Pollard is on the committee. Jamie is the athletics director at Iowa State. Scott Barnes, a name that many of you may know. Scott, of course, was himself quite a basketball player. He is the Oregon State athletic director. We got Bubba Cunningham. Now, Bubba Cunningham has been around forever. Bubba is the athletic director of North Carolina, an ACC man. All right, coming up from the Big Ten, we got Mark Coyle, who is the Minnesota athletic director. Greg Byrne, the Alabama athletic director, is on the group. Keith Gill, Sun Belt commissioner. Barry Collier, Butler athletic director. Martin Newton of Samford. Now, don't confuse it with Stanford. Samford is a small college in Alabama, and Martin Newton is the athletic director there. Big Sky commissioner Tom Whistle, and he's going to be in there. So there's that person. Arthur Johnson. Arthur Johnson is the athletic director at Temple, which is big for the AAC. And Renee Baumgardner, the only woman on the list. Renee is the athletic director at Santa Clara, which is good news, of course, for St. Mary's out in the WCC. So those are those are the folks who will be picking the 68 teams, and we've got a really good cross section of big time schools and big time conferences, along with a group of people who are from the smaller conferences.
Yeah, definitely. So hopefully, these people make the right decisions. That's what I want to see from them. Just because there's a lot of talk about some teams that belong in there might get snubbed, and it's always unfortunate to see that.
Well, you sent me a list yesterday of teams that you thought were bubble teams, and we can go over them. And we also have Jerry's latest bracketology, and we can pop over that as well. So let's talk about it. And here's what Jerry's got for his first four. Okay, these are the first four. Utah, it's 11 seed in the East, would be taking on um, Ole Miss as the play-in game. Then we got Gonzaga, who, frankly, I don't think they have a quality win. Do you? I mean, is there somebody they beat that will qualify them as because this has not been a good year for Gonzaga.
No, it really hasn't been a good year. Obviously, they're trailing in the conference to St. Mary's. Let me just pull up. Their schedule here. Let's see what their best win on the schedule might have been. Like they lost to Purdue,
Right.
In that early tournament. They ended up beating Syracuse and UCLA, but those teams.
Those not. I mean, they got names, but they definitely have not got the. I mean, Syracuse, fantastic basketball school, not recently. UCLA, not consistently. It's been a tough time on Westwood.
A lot of these games, like they lost at Washington, they lost to UConn on a neutral site, they lost to San Diego State, who obviously was a Final Four team last year, but still, it's not a major conference. Obviously, me and you love the Mountain West for basketball, but it's still not a major conference. There's a lot of their basically a lot of their wins have come against cupcake opponents, if you want. Really, their best win this season was at Kentucky, which just happened 3 games ago.
Right. Colorado would be the team that Gonzaga was facing. Colorado has benefited by a lackluster, as good as the Pac-12 was in college football. They are that bad in college basketball. So I'm not sure how good. I'm not so sure how good Colorado really is.
Well, that's what they always say, right? You can't be good in both. And the Pac-12 had such an outstanding football team, football years. So not the best basketball teams. Actually, Washington State has emerged as the one contender to challenge Arizona, which they play tonight, I believe. So that'll be interesting to see.
That'd be fun. In the Midwest, they have Merrimack and Eastern Kentucky. The West, South Dakota State and Norfolk State. Okay, so those are your first four. And now those four, any one of that group in the first four could change. Okay, they can either be bounced off or bounce back in. Those are literally those 2, 4, 6, 8. Those 8 teams we talked about. Any one of those 8 teams could be in today and out tomorrow, or they may even play like a Utah or Colorado. They may be able to play themselves up and into the tournament in a further case. But that's where we are right now with those. Those would be the teams that would be considered, the bubble teams. Cincinnati was on that line last week. They were replaced by Gonzaga. The only thing Gonzaga can do to help themselves would probably be make it to the final against St. Mary's in the tournament, or maybe even beat St. Mary's in the tournament. And they haven't shown any reason to believe that Mark Fell has the kind of team that can do that.
Yeah, like I said, they didn't have a good win on their schedule up until they beat Kentucky. And even then, Kentucky has some good wins, but they've taken some weird losses this season, which really makes me wonder what exactly this Kentucky team is.
Yeah, also on the bubble situation, you had Texas A&M, keeps bouncing in and bouncing out of the tournament, and Butler got knocked out, of the bubble watch. Pitt, Wake Forest. I mean, those are games that you're gonna have to look at and go, let's see what's going on. You also look at the first 4 out. Now, the first 4 out according to Jerry, would be Butler, Texas A&M, Cincinnati, and Oregon. Now, let me read you the win-loss situations at this point for those teams, these 4 teams. Okay, let's go back to the Utah, that whole thing. Utah presently is 16 and 10 in the Pac-12. Ole Miss is 19 and 7 in the Southeastern Conference. The Big 12, 17 and 9 for Colorado. Gonzaga, a very odd record to be where they are, and they're 20 and 6. It's a very deceptive record because they've lost key games in the conference, and so they haven't had any quality losses. Butler, 16 and 11. Texas A&M, 15 and 11. Cincinnati, 16 and 10. And Oregon, 17 and 8. So those are the teams to keep your eye on. Those are the 8 teams to keep your eye on over the next couple weeks. Purdue's on the first line in the. It's likely that Purdue or Houston or UConn will get the overall number 1 seed. They're all going to get, Purdue would get the Midwest. Right now, Purdue would get the Midwest would mean that it means they would be, because the Midwest is where they are in that location standpoint. So they would be the overall number 1. The overall number 1 gets to play in the bracket that would be theoretically closest to them. So that's why Purdue right now is on the line in the Midwest. UConn is on the line in the East. Again, I don't think you or I would argue that either of those teams are a number 1 seed.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, they've been ranked as the 2 best teams in the country for a few weeks now. I think Purdue has slipped down to 3rd now because of their Ohio State loss, but
right.
I don't think much of it for that loss. The same way how UConn lost to Creighton, right? Doesn't really change my opinion much of those teams.
Arizona's got the 1 line out west, which again seems to be fair, and down south it's Houston Cougars. So there's those are your 1 seeds across the board, and I don't think, again, you can argue whether or not they're who gets the overall number 1 seed, but I think those 4 teams fairly get the 1 line. Here's the first round in the Midwest. New Mexico and Texas. That's the 8-9 game. New Mexico is the 8, and Texas is the 9. Texas Tech and Richmond. That's a 5-12. The 5-12s are always, I imagine, from a gaming standpoint, always one of the most interesting because, frankly, for whatever reason, that is, the 5-12 is where a large amount of the upsets pop up.
Yeah, Richmond's been a dangerous team in the A-10.
The Spiders.
Yeah, definitely. And they might they could end up winning that conference because I know Dayton took a loss last night. So it's kind of been those 2 teams in that conference. Is a bit of a 2-horse race. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, Creighton and Yale. That's a 4-13 game. Creighton, of course, is at 4-13. Is at 4. Yale is at 13. The aforementioned Kentucky. Now, here's where things, if this actually played out, that these teams would play each other. Kentucky's a 6, and Grand Canyon's 11, and Grand Canyon is a pretty darn good little team.
Yeah, Grand Canyon is definitely, they've been a dominant team in their conference this year, so definitely a team that's been flying under the radar. But they only have like 4 losses or something this year. I haven't seen their most recent record, but definitely a very good quality team there.
Baylor and Eastern Washington is the next group up. Baylor's good, but I think a 3 seed might be a little bit too good for them.
Yeah, I
So,
think I think so too. But
they're, I mean, they're on a reputation. So okay, fair
yeah,
enough. Oklahoma is number 7 seed against the number 10 seed Virginia. Virginia doesn't have that good of a team this year.
yeah,
They just
Virginia definitely hasn't been good. They've mainly most of their big wins have come at home this year. But
Mhm.
I don't think Oklahoma's been any better either, though.
No, they're equally bad. The difference, though, in this case, is Oklahoma's bad in a better conference.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? But Oklahoma, they lose a lot of their key games they've lost this year.
Mhm.
I don't think they're
It's
that
interesting.
great of
Yeah,
a team.
it's interesting how they draw a 7 seed. Tennessee gets the 2 seed in the Midwest region, and they would open against Morehead State. The funny thing is, Morehead has played year in and year out. They 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 really have teams that drive you nuts. I mean, if they can shoot the three, they can D up on these guys. I mean, they're fast. So I would like to see a Tennessee Morehead State game. That would be kind of fun.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Morehead State's a dangerous team. They've been a dangerous
mhm,
team in their conference all year, and
mhm.
I think a number 2 seed is fair for Tennessee. They're a
Yeah.
very good team, and they had a
Mhm.
good run last year too.
Okay, so in the East right now, Jerry's got us thinking that UConn would open against Southern, and that's a SWAC team. So there you go. UConn gets the. I don't think we have to worry about UConn losing to them.
Yeah,
Uh,
Southern's a funny team just because they opened their season. I think they started the season 1-11 or something like that. I can double check right here, but they were awful, and a big part of the reason was because they kept scheduling all these Power Five teams, and they had something like 9 straight road games to
right.
start the
Yeah.
season. But it's funny because they kind of gave you a false sense that this was going to be a bad team, and then all of a sudden, they come out, they absolutely dominate their
They
conference. They only
blow
have
everybody out. Yeah.
they only have the 2 conference losses, but yeah, they started. I'm looking at it here. They started their first 8 straight games on the road and went 2-6 in those games.
By the way, UConn is at the moment, and I don't see any way they're not going to be the number 1 seed in the East. UConn would open in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center, which, for all intents and purposes, is as close to a home game as you're going to get because UConn has a massive fan base in New York City. So yeah, and I'm pretty sure that Southern's had to travel up to Brooklyn for that tournament. The Here's the fascinating one for us, for you and I. The next game in Brooklyn, it's an 8-9 game. FAU, the 8th team, Michigan State, the 9 team. Okay, FAU got down there, Final Four last year. Tom Izzo and Michigan State not having one of their better years in the Big Ten. Um, FAU, deservingly, I think, is probably in the tournament. Michigan State, you know, I don't know how far you can get on Tom Izzo's name, but they just aren't having a great season either. You got an 8-9 game there. I think in this case, FAU might be worthy of a little higher seed.
You know what, Jim? I'm going to disagree with you just because
Okay.
it's pretty obvious. I feel like South Florida is not going to be in this bracket,
Yeah.
and frankly, FAU can't be in the tournament unless FAU straight up beats them in the conference tournament.
Right.
FAU can't be in the tournament without South Florida. South Florida has the win over them.
Right.
FAU is not the best team from that conference. So to
Yep.
me, this entire 8-9 matchup is a bit of BS to me because I don't think FAU even belongs in the tournament if we're keeping South Florida out.
Right.
And Michigan State, I totally agree with you. They've been terrible this year, and they're only getting into the tournament based off the name Tom Izzo when really their performance hasn't been there.
Right. I thought for a minute there, Lenny had gotten to you.
No. This is look. They're getting hot now, but that's because they know they're like, oh, if we can put up the illusion that we're getting better towards the end of the season, we'll get in based off name value. But a team like South Florida, who's been hot right towards the end of the season all year, they don't get consideration.
Right. We'll find out. Here's a team that you and I both like. Utah State gets a 5 seed. That's respect in the East. And they would play. Remember, I mentioned that Sanford's AD is on the committee. Sanford at the 12 seed spot here. These games would be played in Spokane, Washington. I don't know. Again, Utah State's one of those little teams that nobody's paying attention to, but they just keep winning.
Yeah, Utah State has definitely been one of the teams to beat in the Mountain West this year. But Samford is no joke. They have been a very dominant team in their conference all year, and they have definitely some under the radar potential here. A team not a lot of people are talking about, but they could definitely do some damage. Very good Samford team.
So so you basically got two good mid-major programs up against each other. If this would be the bracket, if that bracket would hold. So that's not a bad one. Here's two teams that, interestingly enough, the Auburn Tigers is a 4 seed. Akron is a 13 seed. And, well, I can only speak for Auburn. I haven't seen any Akron games. But I can say that the MAC has always put some teams in there that definitely play a brand of basketball that wins in tournaments for some reason. Auburn, they're a bit schizophrenic. They've been a very streaky team. They win 3 or 4 in a row, then they lose a game, and just they look like they shouldn't be in the same court with some of these teams. But Auburn a 4 seed.
Yeah, I mean Auburn does have a good team, a little more home dominant it seems to be, right? They don't play as well on the road, but I do know somebody that follows the MAC pretty closely, and they say Akron is definitely no joke this season. They are the best team in the MAC by far, and they could be a very dangerous team going into the tournament. It's a team I haven't really followed myself personally, but I hear nothing but great things about Akron.
Well, there you go. We don't know who Dayton's going to play yet. We don't know if Dayton's in the tournament yet, but Dayton is in Pittsburgh. They're a 6-11 game, and 11 was one of the bubble teams. Iowa State at Charleston. Iowa State versus Charleston. That's the other Pitt game. Iowa State's played. They're a 3 seed. Iowa State has played surprisingly well in the Big 12 this year.
Yeah, Iowa State has a nasty team. Definitely number 3 seed is well deserved for them. And if they end up playing Charleston, Charleston hasn't really been great this year. They're definitely not the team that they were last year. I would think that that if that was the matchup, Charleston probably gets rolled by Iowa State in that one.
Yeah. Okay, St. Mary's, that's our school. Against Mississippi State, I think St. Mary's could take Mississippi. That's a 7-10 matchup, and that game was being played in Charlotte, North Carolina. And ironically, in Charlotte, North Carolina, the number 2 seed in the tournament, the North Carolina Tar Heels would be facing Colgate. That wouldn't last very long. That would set up, though, a potential St. Mary's, North Carolina, next round game.
Yeah, that's an interesting one to me, just because I totally agree. I don't think Colgate's that good. I don't think they're going to give North Carolina much trouble. At the same time, I don't think North Carolina is as good as the illusion they're putting on in the ACC, and I think that they definitely have the potential to take a huge dive in the second round of this tournament.
Well, if it holds true, like if St. Mary's would beat Mississippi State, and Carolina beats Colgate, you got a bracket buster right there in St. Mary's against North Carolina.
Yeah,
At
absolutely.
least the potential bracket buster.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Down south, the Cougars of Houston, they're going to be in Memphis to take on Quinnipiac, a team that does very good analytics. I mean, the statistical work done by Quinnipiac is fantastic. Whether they can translate that to beating Houston, I don't know, but that's going to be a tough one to pull.
You know what? Personally, I think that's a bit of a tough one for Houston. That's
okay.
I don't know if Quinnipiac is a 16 seed. That's a little
disrespectful.
I think that's disrespectful to them. They are by far the best team in the MAC, and yeah, I think that I think they could give Houston trouble. They probably won't beat them, but I just think it's unfair to Houston as well. You know, you should be given an easier opponent in that first round.
The next game, and this game would also be played in Memphis, is an 8-9 game. And again, folks, these are Jerry's picks based on today. Okay. It's 22nd of February. These came out this morning, so they're based today. So, as I said, we're just having. I mean, these teams will probably be in the tournament, especially if you're an 8-9 team. The possibility of you falling out unless you totally tank is a little difficult now. With, as Amedeus earlier said, about 4 or 3 more games, before the tournament starts. This is Florida against. It would be a Florida Nevada game. I'm a little suspect of I'm not saying they don't deserve it being there. I'm a little suspect of Florida. I don't. This is a team that's been really bizarrely inconsistent. They didn't make it even to the top 20 until top 25 until this past week. They showed up. They started winning games, which is good for them. But it's Nevada is like Utah State out in out in the Mountain West. They're flying under the radar, but they're a good team.
Yeah, I'm shocked, Jim. You're a big Gator guy. I'm shocked.
I know. Yeah.
At your words, I'll be honest with you, Jim. I have the exact same thoughts, but in the opposite way about Nevada. I think Nevada's a bit of a suspect team, and for the same reason that you think Florida is, Nevada. I was high on them coming into the season. They've let me down in some spots. They've been a bit of a streaky team. So, they're that kind of team where they win the big upset game on the road they're not supposed to win, and then they go and lose an easy game at home that they're supposed to win. So, definitely I'm a little suspect on Nevada. You're a little suspect on Florida. So, it's the matchup of the suspect.
It means it's an overtime game. They just keep playing.
Triple overtime.
Triple overtime. It's Spokane. We have Illinois of the Big Ten against App State. Now, App State is, and this happens a lot when you see a Big Ten team. Traditionally, a Big Ten team. Illinois is a 5 seed. App State's 12. Nobody's going to argue that Illinois has has good athletes on it. App State basically starts when they come into the arena, starts shooting from the parking lot. I mean, they will. They're athletic. They're fun, and people forget this. Okay, and that is schools like App State, St. Mary's. Some of the teams that we've already talked about. These are teams where the kids have played together for pretty much all 4 years. There's not a lot of there's not a lot of one and done players at these schools. So they come into these tournaments and, they play the kind of team ball that, not necessarily an Illinois plays. And Illinois is physically a good team, and they kill App State on the boards. But, App State, if they get hot with 3-ball or just shooting outside, because they're a perimeter shooting team and they like to run, they could give Illinois trouble.
Yeah, I think Illinois is a very good team, but that might be one that depends on how hot those teams are coming into
Sure.
that game, as you said.
Yeah. Here's a team that we've constantly banged on. I mean, I loved them last year, and this year they're back. Colorado State, they're a 4 seed. UC Irvine would be um, which would be their team that they would face up in Spokane.
Yeah, so UC Irvine is another one of these teams where I feel like they're not that good. I think they've had a history of performing well in the tournament
Mm-hmm.
the last few years, and I think if anything they're getting back to the tournament based off that
Last
off
year.
that off what they've done. Now they are a good team this year,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, not 19-7, and they've
Mm-hmm.
been dominant in the conference. I think they're actually leading the conference in the Big
Mm-hmm.
West. But yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know. They don't have too many quality wins, so it's really hard to judge this team. Like if you look, so for example, you tell me a lot how they're gonna weight those losses for
Mm-hmm.
South Florida that they took at the beginning of the season because you
Right.
lose 4 of your first 6 games with a brand new coach and you're still trying
Right.
to figure out the defensive system and all that. But we're not going to weight the San Jose State loss by UC
Right.
Irvine at the beginning of the season. That's a terrible loss. San Jose State
Mm-hmm.
is trash.
Mm-hmm.
So, I look at that, and then you look at some of these non-conference wins. They beat USC. Whoop de doo. USC sucks. They've had games against Pepperdine, Rice. These aren't quality opponents that they played in the non-conference
Mm-hmm.
schedule. And then if you look at the few, they lose to San Diego State, they lose to Utah State. Those are
Mm-hmm.
those are two very good teams. They lost to New Mexico, another
Mm-hmm.
good team. So this is just I'm expecting a clunker from UC Irvine in this tournament.
Well, there you go. Here's the uh, these next two teams, and these are games that will be played in Charlotte. Um, I would I would swap the rankings. It's Clemson 6, Indiana State, wonderful the wonderful team that Larry Bird played on Indiana State. So I think Clemson's getting a little bit of juice here, and I think that Indiana State might be a little disrespected here.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Indiana State looks like they got 5 Larry Birds on the court for
Right.
them this season because
Right.
they have, I think they're 23-3 or something like that.
Yeah,
They've
they're
they,
amazing.
yeah, they've dominated their conference and they're flying completely under the radar, as you said. This was a team that wasn't ranked until about like last week. They were finally
Right.
showed up in the rankings, and they've been absolutely demolishing teams all season. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely, the spirit of Larry Bird is in this team because they are very good.
Next up in Charlotte, the number 3 Alabama Crimson Tide taking on Louisiana Tech. That's a 3-14 game. Um, and usually, I mean, Louisiana Tech has. Here's the problem with Louisiana Tech. They got like 6 players. Obviously they have a squad of 12, but they really only have 6 who play, and the 6 who play when they play really well. But you can't beat Alabama with 6, without depth, and I think that would be their problem if this game actually occurred. I think that would be a Louisiana Tech's problem.
Yeah, I totally agree. They don't have a chance if they had to play Alabama, and frankly, I don't think Louisiana Tech is a team that belongs in the tournament at all. They're not the best team in the Conference USA, and
Yeah.
obviously we'll find out down the stretch. I believe they're tied at 8-3 in the conference with Sam Houston, but when push comes to shove, I think Sam Houston's going to beat them out. They're the better team in that conference, and La Tech. I mean, a lot of people are high on La Tech, but I just don't see it. This team is a bit of a joke to me.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned this. These are games that are being played in Indianapolis. You had mentioned Washington State, and they're the number 7 seed. Nebraska's the number 10 seed. Man, it's Nebraska in the Big Ten, a 10 seed. I just Nebraska has done anything to impress me to the point that they're a NCAA tournament team.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, Jim. I was high on this team coming into the season. They absolutely destroyed the non-conference schedule, and they really gave you a false sense of security because then when they got into the conference play, they started letting you down at every turn. And it wasn't just like the classic, oh, well, they can win at home but lose on the road. They started losing these home games to some questionable teams, and it's just definitely it's gone nothing but south. Since starting the conference play for this team.
Okay, Shaka Smart doesn't have to travel too far from Milwaukee down to Indianapolis, but right down the highway is Oakland. Now that's not Oakland, California. That's Oakland in Michigan, and in the Detroit area. And Marquette takes on Oakland. Now we know Marquette is a 2 seed, and they deserving of that. 15th ranked Oakland. I think Shaka is not going to lose to Oak. I don't think he's going to lose in this bracket. I mean, I think he's got a pretty easy path to a Sweet 16 for Marquette.
Yeah, this one is a bit puzzling to me. Just because I don't know if Oakland's going to win the Horizon League. I don't think they're the best team in the league.
I agree with you here. But I don't know.
I get they're leading the conference right now, but a lot of people have overlooked Green Bay all season, and they've pulled off. There's been a lot of games where Vegas put them as a 10-point underdog in the conference. There was one a few weeks ago against Youngstown State. They won that game outright on the road, and they've done that all year. They just continue to win games when they're not supposed to. And at some point, just like South Florida, you have to take a step back and ask yourself, is this just a good team? Because we keep saying that, oh, it's just a mirage and they'll come back down to earth, but the results don't lie. And at some point, you have to base it off the performance, not just, oh, well, they had a bad season, but the players are still better. So we're going to keep this team out over this team that didn't have the results this season, but deserves to be in there just because of what we say the quality of the team is.
Yeah. We don't know. This is out west in Salt Lake City. We don't know who Arizona is going to play, but they're a 1 seed. And we said before, they're deserving of a 1 seed. Here's the other brackets in Salt Lake. TCU is an 8 seed. Boise State is a 9. Okay. I don't know what to say about that.
It highlights. I guess it highlights the mediocrity of both teams.
I got nothing to say here. I mean, I swear to God, if they played in my living room, I wouldn't watch these 2 teams play.
Boise State, though, look at the conference they're in. There's Nevada. There's Utah State. New
Colorado
Mexico
State.
is a better team. Yeah, Colorado State. Right there, there's 4 teams better than Boise State. How
San Diego State.
This bracket? Yeah. San Diego. We're totally forgetting about the ranked team that was in the Final Four. So there's 5 teams better than Boise State.
Right.
How does Boise State get in the tournament? That one's a head scratcher to me.
All right, now I got to say something kind of funny. I got this sent to me about 10 minutes before the show. I didn't get a chance to look at it. This is said I texted with Jerry today. Here's in Salt Lake City, number 5. Wisconsin, a number 12 seed, USF Bulls.
Oh yeah, this is South Florida. Okay, love you, Jerry. We got South Florida in there.
What we said about you earlier, Jerry, just don't not paying attention to it.
No. But look, obviously these could change, right?
Oh yeah.
To be fair, he's got a lot of great opinions on a lot of these teams, right? It's just me and you disagree with some, right? And that's the thing, right? It's all it's all subject to opinion. That's pretty much how the bracket is made, right? It's based off the opinions of the people making the picks. So that's just how it goes, and it's good to see that he respects South Florida. I like to see
The
that.
12 seed, yeah.
I would flip. Where did he have FAU? He had them a bit higher, right? I would flip
8
those
seed
two.
in a different, but it was in a different. It's an 8 seed
region.
in the East region in Brooklyn.
Yeah, maybe I'd flip their seeds a bit, but definitely, glad to see South Florida. South Florida could beat Wisconsin. Wisconsin, again, they're like in Nebraska. They had such a strong first half of the season, and then something, I don't know what happened in the middle of the Big Ten season, but something just unclicked and started going south for them.
Why I would think South Florida could beat Wisconsin is they're just not an athletic team. They're a slow team. They play half court basketball, and that's not bad if you can do it well, but they're not doing it that well, as you pointed out.
That's the Big Ten style, right?
Yeah, it is.
That half court basketball.
Yeah, I mean, banging, into bodies and fouling people, and it's no disrespect meant to Wisconsin. It's just that this team could have been. It looks like one of the teams that Bennett coached back in the day when they would score. They played defense so tightly that if the opposing team scored 55 points, they'd think it was a rout. So they're just not an athletic team, and I think that would bode well for South Florida against a very good. I mean, Wisconsin's got a good front line. I'll give them that. They can. If you miss, you're not going to get a second chance unless it bounces way out there, because they're going to get the boards. But beyond that, they're not a big 3-point shooting team. They're not really a good perimeter team at all. But
yeah. I totally think I do think Wisconsin is a good team, and they're worthy of being in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I think 5 is a little generous for them, definitely, and absolutely. I think South Florida could beat them if that was the matchup. Absolutely, just from the sheer speed, the way they score, even in last night's game, just the way Florida was down by 2 scores and found a way with a minute,
4 minutes,
left in the game. They just even so, they were losing with a minute and a half or something like that in the 2-minute mark, and just out of nowhere, this just bang, we take the lead, and then we start. All of a sudden, UTSA starts missing shots, and they start getting the fouls and pull away. But just I think South Florida's a much better team. I think they can definitely take advantage of the pace that Wisconsin plays at.
Now, we mentioned this team a couple of minutes ago, and here they are: San Diego State and McNeese State. It's a 4:13 game, and those games will be played in Brooklyn. South Carolina is a 6 seed. We don't know what the 11 seed is, so Carolina gets whomever ends up on the 11 line from the play-in game. So those are those. I mean, that's what, the 4th Mountain West team in the tournament.
Yeah, I agree that San Diego State should be in there, and McNeese State. I'm a little sad that Jerry put that as the matchup, just because those are 2 very good teams. I think have the potential to go past the first round. So if they got to play each other in the first round, not what I like to see, but definitely with those, no problems there. Those are definitely some tournament worthy teams.
Well, I think that they're in. Just whether or not they're going to be bunched together, I have no idea.
Yeah, and a lot of this, the seeding is very subject.
Oh yeah,
right. You could there's a lot of teams you could say that's a 3 seed. I could say it's a 4 seed. Right. What matters is they get in the tournament. So
there's that.
Is lots of subject.
The other thing too, and to your point on that, is that seeding is subject, but you can play yourself either up or down in the next 4 regular season games and in the tournament. In the conference tournament. So, what is now a 5 seed could be a 9 seed, and what now is a 12 seed could be a 6 seed. You don't know. It just depends on how things play out. Now, of course, let me make an apology to people in South Carolina. I thought when they started being ranked, I thought it was the women's team, not the men's team. But ironically, you know, so with that ranking and all the stuff that South Carolina's got, they're 6th seed in this scenario here. I don't know. To be honest, I haven't seen that much of them play. So if Jerry thinks they're a 6th seed, I'll bite. But I don't. I haven't seen enough of them to really comment, other than they're in the tournament.
Yeah. So South Carolina's 21-5 this season,
Mm-hmm.
and I think definitely I don't argue with the 6th seed just because they've had
Mm-hmm.
such a great season. They have some quality wins. They beat Tennessee on the road. That's a quality win. But then they go to Auburn, they lose by 40, and then they just took a 1-point loss by LSU in their last game. To be fair, they beat Auburn at home, earlier in the
Mm-hmm.
season. But then, they lose their last game to LSU at home by 1. So South Carolina, I think, is a team where, yeah, I agree, 6th seed as of now, but that could change. They still have, 5 games plus the conference tournament, and right now they're on a 2-game losing streak. If all of a sudden their momentum is snapped and they don't get out of the
Mm-hmm.
spiral, then we could see a tournament or we could see a team here that spirals itself right out of the tournament, because people might
Mm-hmm.
chalk it up to as oh well, they were good, and they as soon as they got into the rankings, though, they
They
went
tanked.
downhill
Yeah.
from there, right? They showed their true colors.
Well, courtesy of the former coach of the Duke Blue Devils, the one and only Coach K, Mike Krzyzewski. If Krzyzewski was coaching still, it's a 3 seed. Duke's a 3 seed against Vermont, a 14 seed. The game's being played at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. This would be a home game for Duke. I mean, there are so many New Yorkers who love Krzyzewski and love Duke, who never went to Duke, but they're just they're Duke fans. So I guarantee you, there's going to be a lot of blue and white and Duke fans in attendance. I imagine, without any question, Krzyzewski will probably be there as well, just to root him on. But Duke used to go up and play games at Madison Square Garden and play games at Barclays Center, and used to do a lot of recruiting and just crush it in Jersey, in Pennsylvania, and New York and Connecticut, and they basically went up and got whoever they want. But I mean, that's Coach K. But so Duke of Vermont at Brooklyn, I wouldn't want to be Vermont.
Yeah, so I definitely don't hate that personally.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Duke is great, and I don't think they're a 3 seed. But that being said, based off their performance in the conference and the non-conference games, I would say a 3 seed is fair. And you're probably asking yourself, well, you just said you don't think they're a 3 seed, but now, so I'll explain that a bit. I don't think this team is a 3 seed quality wise. But based off their performance this season, I think you have to give them a 3 seed. It is a fair a place to put them in the tournament. That being said, we haven't seen them play stronger teams is the other thing, right? So that's where I say, if this team had to go up against better teams, this isn't a 3 seed. But based off their performance, give them the 3 seed. That's definitely fair. And I think they get stopped by a stronger team they run into.
Which could be South Carolina.
Yeah. And it could be a lower seed, right? Because again, we talk seed is subject, and we've seen many times a team can get hot and go on a run. So it might not even be a better team that could beat Duke. I think they have the potential to lose to a team that's just hotter at the time.
Absolutely. All right. Oh, here's a team that kind of flew out of nowhere, but ended up being having a good year. That's BYU. BYU is a 7 seed. They're going to take on Northwestern. These games are being played in Omaha, Nebraska. So BYU against Northwestern of the Big Ten. So BYU in their first year in the Big 12, and they're having a party up in Provo.
Yeah, I mean, those are two good teams. I'm not gonna argue with them being in the tournament. I think they both deserve it. Northwestern has a win against Purdue this season, so I mean it's going to be hard to keep them out as long as they have a respectable record in the conference and so on. So,
and closing out our brackets, again, a team you can't argue with the seeding on this, Kansas, would be taking on High Point in that 2-15 game.
Yeah, so another one I'm sad to see because I think High Point is a very good team. They're probably going to get rolled by Kansas if they have to play them, but High Point might be a team that against somebody else could pull off an upset possibly. So
yeah, let's we have a list here of the seeded teams and where they came from, and seeds 1 through 4, and then let's see, seeds. I thought that they were going to weight the teams, but they're not. They're just listing them in clumps as to who is who's for instance, we talked about South Florida on the 12 line. App State is on the 12 line. Akron is on the 12 line, and so is Yale. On the 13 line is UC Irvine, McNeese, Charleston, East Washington, Eastern Washington. 14 line is Louisiana Tech, Vermont, Colgate, Morehead State. You see a very strong, as we go further down the pack here, starting at number 12 and moving down to 16. I don't see a Power 5 team in any of this. So it gives you see how well being a Power 5 team benefits you in the tournament. I guess Gonzaga would have to be a surprise with Gonzaga at 11 seed. Again, we're talking Colorado's 11 seed. So Utah's an 11 seed, Ole Miss is 11 seed. So that pretty much is the cutoff line right there. Is 11. 11 is where basically the Power 5 schools. In basketball, you can say Power 6 because I think nobody would argue that the Big East is a power conference.
Yeah. Probably I would put them with the Big 12 as one of two best conferences in college basketball. So.
Yeah, for sure. So that's where we got in this, boys and girls. Again, it's Jerry. If you want to read his stuff, I strongly recommend you do. Just go to cbs.com and it will be there. So go to cbs.com. I'm sorry, cbssports.com. If you go to CBS, you'll be looking at NCIS videos. But yeah, Jerry's there, and he does bracketology. And we might have come out a little strong before, but now we're okay with them in that regard. So there you go.
It's just South Florida, right? That's right. All it is. I get heated when I see FAU ahead of South Florida. Maybe I jumped the gun. So my apologies, Jerry. But some disagreements in spots. But like I said, we're good. We're going to see how it shakes out these last few weeks, right?
Yeah.
There's some things that Jerry's going to be wrong on. There's some teams I'm going to be wrong about. So
I doubt that. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that. Right? I'm not going to. You can't win them all. Can't be right about everything. So definitely, I'm sure there's going to be a team that I thought deserved to be in the tournament that screws up down the line, and I totally whiffed on it. But absolutely, we'll see how it all shakes out. This is the exciting part, right?
That's why they call it madness. Yes.
Yeah, the last few games, getting into the conference tournament. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. There could be some crazy surprise. There could be a team that comes out of nowhere and wins a conference tournament that nobody expected to. So,
well, that happens.
Throw everybody bracket off, right? Just completely throw it in the trash and let's restart the bracket.
Well, there have been 2 or 3 times in the last 5 years where teams with losing records have won the tournament, the conference tournament.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So
right?
There they go, and it's like, well, gosh, that's a 1 or 2 bid, league, and that one team just ate up a bid. So there you go. All right, Amadeus, you got some fun stuff for us tonight. Going on to look here in our show box below and link to all of your good stuff.
Yeah, make sure you check out my premium picks at bigal.com, pickadvisor.com, and theinsidersroom.com. The links are in the description below. I don't have don't have much up tonight. Just have 3 college basketball that you can go check out, as well as an NBA pick. You know, the NBA is back, and also I did have a winning day on the pitch yesterday, so you can't get my Europa League game of the month because it's already started. But I've made my return to the Americas for soccer. The MLS started yesterday. Cashed my game of the month with Miami in a nice 2-0 win over Salt Lake City, and now I got a big game in the Copa Libertadores for tonight, the qualifiers. So make sure you check that out.
All right. I was going to ask you about if you caught Messi in Miami last night.
Yeah, I saw a bit of it. It was a good game. They scored, the first goal right before half, and then tacked on that extra one I needed to not push on the game. And like I said, it's his league to lose this year.
Well, I tell you what, not to waste a lot of time on it, but that Thomas kid can play.
Yeah, definitely. They got some nasty. He was the one that scored the first goal, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He was. I was actually shocked to not see Messi or Suarez on the score sheet when I saw who scored the 2 goals. So definitely was.
Messi got an assist, I think, on the second one.
Yeah, like I said, it's not just the it's not just the older South American boys. They got Julian Gressel's kind of nasty. You might not see him in the box sheet often, but trust me when I say he's down in the nitty gritty, getting those, giving the forwards the opportunity to get into those scoring positions. So,
well, Thomas in that goal last night, he was sneaky. I mean, he's just kind of like, oh, here I am. Ching! He just picked up the loose change and put it in the back of the net. Now, all that being said, the keeper, I don't know what he was thinking, because that ball, got through. It's almost like it went through him, like it just transported itself directly through him. But full marks to Thomas. I mean, that was a gutsy shot, and he took it, and angle was good, and he got the goal. So
well, here's the thing with that, Jim. Just I'll make one last comparison. It's like having Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. Before it was just Messi.
Right.
Now you bring in Suarez, and it's like, okay, well, if we cover Messi, Suarez is open, so you got to watch those two. And then, there you are. Poor Thomas is just all by himself, like, hey, who's covering me? I can score goals too. So there's be a dangerous attack this year on that.
Well, you got 2 9s.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? And
technically you have 3, but 2 is Suarez and Messi.
And Messi, as you saw, like he's kind of playing on the wing more because he's obviously he's used to that from the Barcelona days. I mean, Suarez does know too, but I definitely think he's probably trying to make Suarez's life a little easier. First coming to the team, it was his first match with them. So, like I said, Suarez had a good season for Gremio last year. So Miami, they're going to be good this year.
Yeah. There's you mentioned that that they were what, 120? Was it plus 120? At the in the season?
137 to win the East.
137, okay.
And that's just regular season.
Well, I mean, they should be able to do that. If anything, last night, and that the place, they're going to be, and it happened last year, they're going to go on the road, and everywhere they go, it's going to be like a Taylor Swift concert. Everybody's going to be in Messi jerseys, and you're going to be in the Meadowlands, and everybody's going to be screaming for, for Miami over New York. So
it'll be some rare road games for them.
Yeah. Very, one thing you don't have to worry about is hostile crowds. There won't be any. So there'll be a lot of fun. All right, guys, tomorrow's Friday. So we got all kinds of fun stuff for the Friday show. And there's going to be some decent Premier League games coming up this weekend. So we'll see how that goes, and all kinds of good basketball. And it's just we're cruising to. It's our first weekend of of spring training baseball too. So a little bit of everything for everybody. All right. So from Amedeus, I'm Jim. We'll see you tomorrow. Everybody have a good day.